Hello, a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It could be any of those things to me after travelling yesterday. And welcome along to, I think, yes, I'm pretty certain we are in Japan for round 17 of MotoGP in 2025, where the comeback is loading. Not any comeback, not a comeback, but the comeback. One of the greatest, not only in MotoGP history, but in any sport you will have seen anywhere. This weekend, the maths are simple. If Marc Marquez can outscore brother Alex by 3 points, that's including both the sprint and the Grand Prix, then that 7th MotoGP crown and 9th World Championship overall will go the way of the number 93. Jack Appleyard and Lewis Suddaby here. It's been coming for quite some time. I think since what, round 5, round 6 of the season, when he started to get into his rhythm and started to put that run together of 15 straight victories. We knew that this day was going to come, this weekend was going to come, but it still doesn't make it any less of a sporting story.
Incredible story, incredible journey that Marc Marquez has been on. Of course, this is a journey that goes back really to the start of 2020 and the crash he had at Jerez, of course, as he wins the World Championship, which could be this weekend, may not be. Yep. We'll be able to tell that whole story. But Marc Marquez, you expect he's going to try and treat this Grand Prix weekend like any other. He's not the kind of rider who wins World Championships the cautious way, does he? He likes to go out there and win the World Championship by winning the Grand Prix. As you say, the math's fairly simple. A 3-point gain over the weekend achieves it, which means he can't win the championship in the sprint. Whatever happens, it will be Sunday at the earliest. If he wins the sprint, all he has to do is then finish ahead of Alex Marquez in the Grand Prix itself. So we'll have a much better idea on Saturday afternoon precisely what Marc Marquez needs to win the World Championship on Sunday. This has been a golden circuit for Marc Marquez over the years. He's won 3 of his MotoGP World Championships around this place: 2014, 2016, and most recently in 2018. He would dearly love to add another to that. This is a special venue for Marc Marquez for many, many reasons, and he could add another golden moment to that here this weekend. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you are exactly right in what you say is that it could happen this weekend. I think there's almost just this anticipation, expectation that, oh, he's going to wrap it up this weekend. But although the sun has been shining here today, the forecast does say that we could get some wet weather. And normally when we get wet weather here at Motegi, it does mean that it comes down in the bucket loads on both Saturday and Sunday. So it's not a given that he's going to wrap it up here this weekend, but obviously a huge opportunity, and just the form that he's been in throughout the entirety of the year, we're all expecting that there's a huge, huge opportunity and a huge chance for him. And he's going to go out there and try to win it by winning both races, because I think he was walking the circuit this morning when he arrived with his girlfriend, Gemma Pinto, and our behind the scenes, our documentary cameras were there. And one of the cameramen who I was chatting to over lunch was saying that he put the question to him, oh, are you treating it like a normal weekend? And he said, this isn't the final round of the season. If it doesn't come this weekend, I'll just go to Indonesia next weekend. If it doesn't come there, I'll just go to Australia. There are still 6 rounds remaining, so plenty time for Marc Marquez to eventually wrap up this MotoGP World Championship. So there's going to be no cautiousness from him this weekend at all. The points lead is such that he just doesn't need to be cautious. As you say, if he was managing a 50 or so point lead rather than the 180 odd that he's got at the moment, you almost forget how many points clear he is. It's so big, the advantage. Then maybe he would have to be a little bit more cautious. Maybe he'd have to watch what Alex is doing a little bit more closely. But he can afford to score nothing this weekend and still be in a very, very strong position. And Alex's focus really is on ensuring he finishes second in the World Championship. Those chances were certainly boosted by what we saw in Misano a couple of weeks' time. But the combination of results that we saw in Misano would not win Marc Marquez the World Championship here, of course. Remember, he crashed in the sprint when he was on course to win it. And it is absolutely no guarantee that Marc Marquez or Ducati, full stop, will win the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, because the threats are certainly building from all quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to that in a second. But let's walk down in this direction, Lewis, because we're going to hear from team boss at the Ducati Lenovo squad, Davide Tardozzi, to get his thoughts ahead of what could be this historic weekend. Later in the show as well, we're going to be speaking to Pedro Acosta, who is one man that you think is going to be right at the forefront of that Ducati challenge this weekend. Of course, 12 months ago was able to become the second youngest pole position winner, setter, pole position, what's the correct phrase there? But anyway, pole sitter, that's the one, of his career before, unfortunately, crashing out of the sprint and the Grand Prix as well. I'm sure there will be lesson learned there. And then coming up at 4 o'clock local time, the pre-Japanese Grand Prix press conference with Marc Marquez, Marco Bezzecchi and home hero Ai Ogura as well. So that's all to look forward to over approximately the next hour or so live here from Motegi. But as we see, one man coming out of the Ducati box, Pecco Bagnaia. We want to speak to his team manager, and I'm going to bob my head around the corner here to see if a certain Mr. Davide Tardozzi is there, and for the moment it's not. So, well, why don't we stand and chat and wait anyway, and we'll hover and hopefully wait for Mr. Tardozzi to appear and touch on what Marc, has to do this weekend, because, as we say, extending it out by 3 points, but if wet weather comes into the equation, then that's going to make life much more challenging for him.
Yeah, I guess it levels the playing field to a certain extent. Of course, we've already seen wet Grand Prix this season. Marc Marquez was beaten by Johann Zarco at the French Grand Prix. We had a wet sprint at the Sachsenring where Marco Bezzecchi very nearly beat Marc Marquez, was denied on the final lap of the sprint. So, yeah, without question, the playing field is levelled somewhat. And as we've seen over the years here, you usually do get some interference from the weather at some stage in this Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Whenever we come here in September, we usually get some sprinkling of rain. The forecast has been changing, hasn't it, through the week? Some have been saying potentially some rain on Sunday. The most recent forecast are more pointing towards Saturday that we might get some wet weather. By the time we come on air for tomorrow for 3 Back to 1, that could have all changed again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth keeping our eye on the forecast and the clouds this weekend. How about whilst we wait for Davide Tardozzi, we were speaking to some of the riders here today. In particular, one man that I think you're going to enjoy hearing from is the current world champion, of course, the number one of Jorge Martin. For how much longer we're going to be able to call him that, who knows? It does seem like it'll just be a couple of days, but in fact, no, we won't be hearing from Jorge Martin just yet. Luckily, right on time, here is the man we've been wanting to chat to, Mr. Davide Tardozzi. Busy, I imagine, planning some celebrations this weekend, ironing those championship T-shirts for Sunday, perhaps. Davide, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. But, always ready here in Japan is something that excites us, because we are on the house of the Japanese, and, trying to win here is a challenge, and we would like to do it.
Well, let's touch on the big topic coming into the weekend. Of course, Marc's opportunity to win the World Championship. What a story it will be, we imagine, at some point. If it's not this weekend, then over the coming weekends. We're saying one of the greatest comeback stories in any sport, to play a part, that final, most important part in that comeback story. How pleasing, how proud are you to have got Marc into this position?
Oh, we are very proud, because we bring back such a huge champion to a win, and we hope that it will happen. But yeah, the possibilities are very, very, very high. So it depends. Winning here in Japan is something special, but if it's not in Japan, it will be in Indonesia or whatever. The important thing is that Marc will be world champion again.
Sense any nerves from him at all?
No, not at all. I think that Marc knows himself. He deserves this championship. He knows that his potential are back like before the accident in 2020. So I think that he is very relaxed.
Of course, you will have known Marc Marquez so well, even before he came to the box. You'll have watched him from a distance. So often he was the opposition to Ducati. Now, of course, he's part of your team. Is there any one element of Marc Marquez, the rider, the person, that has even surprised you from working with him this year?
Yeah, first of all, we joke a lot about our, former rivalry. But in the end, Marc is a very nice person, because during this year that he's with us, I appreciate even more the person than the rider, the champion. So I think that this duo, Ducati-Marc, it works perfectly. I think that Gigi Dall'Igna makes an excellent work on performance of the bike and managing the rider. So I think that this year was an amazing year. We'll see. We'll see what it will be on Sunday.
You certainly needed Marc at his top level in Misano last time out. Marco pushed you so far, so close to the end. In terms of the opposition, how worried or how concerned are you by the opposition? Aprilia, potentially KTM at a circuit such as this? They seem to be really closing the gap.
Absolutely, yes. We thought that it was good for us to stop the development on 2025 bike, because we saw in the beginning of the year that the performance was incredible. But it seems that Dorna's rules was very good, because our opponents grows a lot this year, and Gigi now start to think again. He said better that we go back on the desk and start to open some drawer where we have some news, and thinking about next year and end of the year.
Well, Davide, good luck this weekend. Hopefully we're chatting to you on Sunday with a nice T-shirt and some champagne in your hands. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's a successful weekend for Davide and the Ducati squad. And you're right in what you're saying. As he says, obviously the rules, the concession rules have come in to in particular help Yamaha and Honda, but the lack of testing and the lack of rear tyres, which obviously results in a lack of testing, and the lack of wild cards that have come Ducati's way, have really allowed KTM and Aprilia to close that gap. And this year, obviously, we know where that World Championship is going to go, but I think there's a lot of people, us included, that feel that 2026, with a lack of development again because of the engine freeze, we could see a fascinating championship battle next year. Well,
as Davide said there, GT he's going to have to reach into that very deep drawer that he's got of tricks and of ingenious ideas, because I think what's been noticeable this year, of course, we said it right from the start of the season, the GP25 didn't appear to be the step forward that the 24 was from the 23. So certainly that's allowed Alex Marquez to be more of a threat to the factory riders than he has been in previous years. Of course, Alex Marquez will be on the factory spec bike next season, so he'll have that level playing field to work with. But if you look at Aprilia and KTM, the parts that they've been bringing to the bike in recent Grand Prix have made a big difference to their bikes, and I think that's been a huge step from them. We've seen KTM in previous years throwing parts of the problem. They haven't always worked. They've sometimes been trying to sort of figure out the right formula for the bike. They appear to have found that now, and as we discussed earlier on, this does feel like a real KTM track, very stop and go, similar in some respects to the Red Bull Ring and to Balton Park, where Pedro Acosta was so competitive. If he could qualify well, he'll be a threat to the Ducatis. And Marco Bezzecchi is proving that put him and that Aprilia on any kind of race circuit right now, whether it's fast and flowing, whether it's stop and go, whether it's wet, whether it's dry, that Aprilia and Marco Bezzecchi on board are very, very competitive. So there's no question that a Ducati victory is not the foregone conclusion that it might have felt like earlier in the year. Yeah, absolutely. And you speak about Bez, we're going to hear from him in the press conference at 4 o'clock local time in around 20 minutes. He is the red-hot favourite to finish third in the World Championship now. Only 8 points separate both himself and Pecco Bagnaia, and you know, all of the momentum, all of the confidence is with one rider there. One's trending in one direction and the other trending in the total opposite. Bagnaia was pretty positive after the Misano test, but Gigi Dall'Igna wanted to pour a little bit of cold water on that and saying when you've had problems for 9 months, it takes more than just one day to be able to sort them out. So we'll have to see what Bagnaia can do. You feel that these final 6 rounds of the year are just about building that confidence up to get him in a position where he can be competitive again going into 2026. Yeah, I think we've learned through this season to not completely ignore Pecco Bagnaia's comments following a test, but take them with a pinch of salt, because we've been there before. Yeah, we thought after Aragon, with the famous brake disc change on the morning of the race, that had suddenly transformed his fortunes. We soon found out that wasn't the case. And ultimately, from his point of view, it's been a season of false dawns as we welcome Pedro Acosta, who's joined us. How are you?
Everything good, yeah?
Yeah, very good, very good. There's a video coming later on where we asked riders as they were walking into the circuit this morning what their go-to karaoke songs. And I have to say, from the start, I was very impressed with Pedro's. He went for a classic Creed number, which are one of my favourite bands as well. I'm impressed. I thought that your music taste was maybe into some reggaeton rubbish that my Spanish colleagues tried to play me all the time.
I'm spending many time with Paul coming from the New Zealand, with Remy coming from the Australia. I mean, it's quite normal to go in that direction, you know, because even with Remy that now I'm spending many time and he's playing the guitar whole time, it's quite easy to maybe change what you are listening.
Well, I like it anyway. Hopefully that gives you some energy this weekend. And this is a circuit, I imagine, where you're confident of being competitive right from the start.
Yeah, I mean, last year, from the moment that I am in the back, we was quite competitive. Let's see what is going on this year. Being honest, I'm not expecting anything. Let's see what's happened when I am on the bike on Friday, and after that, let's try to work.
The bike is quite different this year. It feels like it's gone through an evolution of some kind, and the way in which to maximise it, you have to ride a little bit differently, which might not suit here.
Well, I think we should anyway. But like I say, no expectation. It's true, like you say, the bike changed a lot. Now looks more balanced, you know. Last year it's true that we were super strong on brakes, and this year looks not that much, but we are improving in many areas for this. I think we have to be calm and don't think so much.
You said expectations, you don't really have any coming to this weekend, but do you have some still clear targets for the races that remain? Is the target to win a Grand Prix? Is the target to maybe still get third in the World Championship? What are the aims that you've still got for the remaining 6 Grand Prix?
Well, again, no targets maybe, you know. Try to be always in this top 5, try to be constantly competitive. I think we have to improve a bit how I'm managing the races, how the guys are managing the weekend. I think we have to improve a bit everyone, but we are getting closer, let's say.
And is the route to a lot of that qualifying? We've seen through recent Grand Prix your race pace is very good, but often coming from the 3rd, 4th row of the grid. Is that the big area that you still need to work on?
Yeah, more than anything, because we are losing a lot of time at the beginning of the races, you know, trying to overtake. It's true that for the TV is quite nice, but then for the rate result not that good, you know, for this. I mean, in Barcelona was quite okay. We see that at the beginning we was able to be fast, starting quite more in front. For this, it's never easy to come back every weekend from the 3rd row of the grid for this. So let's try to improve that area from here to the end of the year. That will be already a good step.
Looking at the Grand Prix we've had, do you think you've had a perfect weekend yet, where you've managed to put everything together?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If you split all the weekends around, our main session that we are coming good. It's true that since we come from the summer break, we improve a lot the general view of the weekend, but always this Q2, like he say, it's our weakest point, you know. Always we can be inside the top 5 until arrive the qualifying, and we are always in the 3rd row of the grid. But anyway, we have to be honest with ourselves, and it's the only way that we can improve maybe.
Well, good luck this weekend, Pedro. Have a fun one.
Thank you, bye, guys.
Good luck.
There we go. Good to chat with Pedro Acosta, who definitely, I think, is going to be someone to keep an eye on this weekend. So fast last year, and I think everyone in that box is just hoping that lessons have been learned, potentially after that first pole position. That youthful exuberance, bit of youthful inexperience just caught him out, and he was a little bit overconfident last year.
Yeah, I certainly hope he can get himself a result here this weekend, because I was waxing lyrical about him in commentary at the point he crashed. I felt partly responsible for it, although it turns out I wasn't the only commentator that was doing that. I feel like half the paddock jinxed him when he looked like he was going to win the sprint, didn't he? Pecco Bagnaia pretty much called it off and said second place will do me just fine, until Pedro Acosta crashed, and we never really got far enough into the race last year, did we, on the Sunday, to see whether Acosta could have done anything about Bagnaia in the race. As he said, though, KTM, very different animal this year, and a different way of getting the best out of it. So it might seem on paper a very strong KTM venue, but we've said that, I guess, on other occasions this season. It's not quite come to pass. But they and Aprilia, as we already discussed, certainly are closing the gap on Ducati. If he can qualify on the front 2 rows, there's a podium challenging him for certain. Yeah,
absolutely. But that is the big question. I remember speaking to Casey Stoner just last weekend or the weekend before, about Pedro Acosta, and he said it's obvious. The talent is there, the potential is there, but we've had 16 rounds, and he even admits just there, he's not had a perfect weekend yet. And if you seriously want to take the fight to Marc Marquez next year, then you can't be making key mistakes and key moments like he has done at quite a few events this year. So I think everyone in KTM, and Pedro himself, will want not just one, but a couple of weekends where he's able to put everything together in the right moments, because that's what it's going to need on a very consistent basis to put a challenge up to Marc next year, which is what these guys want to do.
It's always that fine line, isn't it, between putting yourself on the bike on the line, but riding on the limit rather than slightly over it. Key errors in Austria, when he put a pretty scrappy Q2 lap together when we thought he was going to be on the front row. We thought he was the main challenger to Ducati that weekend. It turned out to be Marco Bezzecchi in the end. Then in Hungary, when he threw a KTM at our cameraman when it looked like he was on course for the front row of the grid as well. Those should have been 2 front row starts, or minimum second row for Pedro Acosta. They ended up being 3rd row or worse.
And Misano.
And Misano as well, where he crashed in Q2 when he was trying to go with, he was following Marc Marquez, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In his qualifying lap, trying to go with him to a place on the front row of the grid. So, yeah, it's about putting that clean, perfect weekend together to back up the progress that KTM have clearly made. Of course, we spoke about them a lot over the winter for reasons not to do with the performance of their motorcycle. All of that appears to be put to the background now, and they can focus on the job. And we're seeing the progress being made from KTM through this season, but they haven't got that one tangible result to ultimately show for it. Yes, we've had podiums back in Brno, but I think Pedro Acosta and KTM secretly, they want to win before the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they need a win as well, because you look up and down the grids, it's the long longest wait for a dry victory is right here at KTM.
3.5 years.
3.5 years since the last time they stood on the top step of a MotoGP podium, which for the amount of money they're investing is not what they want. Pedro Acosta, a two-time world champion, a man that wants to succeed, so he's be desperately hoping to try and end that wait. Right, we said we were going to bring you the comments of Jorge Martin, so let's hear from the former world champion, shall we? As we said, potentially the last weekend, dude, I just called him the former world champion, didn't I, by accident?
It's about to be.
The potentially soon-to-be former world champion still holds that #1 play, and of course will do until the end of the season for now. But when asked about the potential of Marc Marquez stealing that crown away from him this weekend, he was nothing but filled with praise for the number 93.
Yeah, I mean, for sure it's one of the greatest comebacks in the history of sports, I think. For me, I have to say it's a big example, no? Because coming from where I come, being champion, then getting injured, I think having his example can help me to go back to winning. And yeah, historical season he did. So congrats to Marc. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
So, Jorge Martin there, confirming what we all know, that it's one of the greatest sporting comebacks, because I was coming into this weekend trying to look at previous sporting comebacks where someone has been so low, it will be, eventually by the time he wins this championship, 5 separate surgeries, 4 on the arm alone since that crash in Jerez. You know, the depths of despair, how close to retirement he was, and for me there is nothing out there that can compare to what Marc has been able to do to get back to the top of the sport once again. It is truly remarkable and unique how much of a turnaround it's been.
Yeah, trying to think back through some other sports. Tiger Woods, of course, came back to win the Masters after a pretty serious injury that he sustained partway through his career, after we thought we'd seen the best from him. Just thinking back to guys like Roger Federer, who had a major drop-off. We thought he was perhaps too old to win a Grand Slam. He then came back and won several of them, got back to world #1. But Marc Marquez, 4 surgeries on his arm. He had a couple of episodes of diplopia in the middle of all of that as well. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back for him was that Sachsenring weekend in 2022, where he had 5 crashes through the weekend. The last of those on the Sunday morning in the warm-up, we saw him just slumped over the tyre barrier. It looked like a rider who'd completely fallen out of love with MotoGP, and I think he had, because he said that the move to Gresini was all about getting the enjoyment back for racing. He got that back in 2023 when he was essentially riding for free. And then ultimately, once he got the taste for competing again, he then wanted the taste for winning. He got that with the Gresini squad, those victories in the back end of last season. And 2025 was all about enjoyment, and the only enjoyment he was going to get through this season was from winning. He's now back to the winning machine that Marc Marquez was over many years. And there's been a discussion, a debate through the paddock through this season. Is this the best we've ever seen of Marc Marquez? I'd argue that it's potentially not the fastest we've ever seen from Marc Marquez, but as a complete package in terms of the ability to limit mistakes. Of course, once we got through Jerez, we've only seen 1 mistake from him really, and that was in the sprint in Misano. He does still have that blistering speed that puts him on a level with very few in MotoGP history. He's so good on used tyres as well, so by going so quick he doesn't burn his tyres out. There is very few areas, or there are very few areas in Marc Marquez's riding where you could say he's not the best in the world. He's one of the best in qualifying, he's one of the best in the sprints, he's one of the best at managing his tyres, he's super good in the wet. He is the complete package.
Absolutely, and complete is the right word as well, because following on from that crash in 2020, Marc has understood the fact that he's not invincible. There was, for a lot of his early years, at a younger age, when he was potentially slightly less mature and everything just came to him with such ease, he felt he was invincible. He felt he was undefeatable. And for a lot of it, he was. But that reminder allowed him to mature and allowed him to turn into the rider he is now, where he is, as you say, the most complete version that we've ever seen, arguably of any rider. And you look at 2026, we're trying to build up the World Championship fight next year, and it will be tight, but he's still going to be the red-hot favourite, because you look at history and it is Tom Brady partnered with the New England Patriots. It's Michael Jordan paired with the Chicago Bulls. It's Lionel Messi partnered with FC Barcelona. These are the 2 top partners in MotoGP right now. Ducati are going to win the Riders' World Championship for a 4th straight year. They've just wrapped up the Manufacturers' Championship for, what is it, a 6th straight year, which is the first time that's been done since the 90s. And now they've got Marc Marquez on the bike, which doesn't look like he's got any chink to his armour. So it's been some journey for Marc, and there's also talk in the Ducati in the Italian press as well that you mentioned that move to Gresini. When Gigi Dall'Igna found out that Marc was going to be available and was interested in a move, he was trying to put him on the factory bike straight away last year, but Marc decided no. He didn't have the confidence in himself. I think he openly admitted, I want to go to Gresini to find out if I've still got it first. Well, we've certainly found that out, that he has definitely still got it. And one man who's found a lot of confidence and a lot of speed this year is Alex Marquez as well. Confirmed coming into this weekend that he will be on a full factory Ducati for the very first time next year, a GP26 for him, and quite rightly, quite deservingly as well for the man second in the World Championship. Here is what he had to say early on when reacting to that news.
I mean, super happy for me, super happy especially for the team. I think they deserve it. If you see the historical from Gresini in Ducati, they did amazing jobs every year. Every year they get some win on racing, on the races, so they deserve it. So yeah, thanks to Ducati, to Gigi especially, because he did this, real. And yeah, we'll have all the material to make a 26 season a good job, but first of all, we need to finish this season in a good way. Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure we'll change a little bit our approach during all the tests and all that. We'll have more things to try, more things to work and all that. So yeah, we'll have double work. This year was super easy, the test. We were just trying to extract the performance, not trying pieces and all that. But that work I like it, to try things, to help Ducati to improve, and yeah, will be a really good opportunity for me and for the team, and we need to extract the potential from that.
Alex Marquez there on his factory upgrade for next year. Going to be 4 of them on the grid. Obviously, Marc and Pecco, Alex and Didier. We believe, not been confirmed yet, but it does seem like that Didier will be holding on to that factory bike, a GP26. I mean, we're going to call it a GP26, but the makeup of it, we really don't know. That's going to be the main focus of pre-season. It is finding out what kind of a Ducati are able to put together. And of course, for Frankie Morbidelli and Firmin Aldeguer, officially they're going to be on GP25s, but will it be the GP25 that we see Marc and Pecco? Or
as Alex points out, it's going to be a very different pre-season for him next year than it was at the start of this year.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and it's going to be a big job for Alex to try and get a bike that he's comfortable on. So that's all to come in pre-season, but as you might be able to see, we have some riders ready and waiting to officially kick off this Japanese Grand Prix. Marc Marquez ahead of what could be a historic weekend here in Motegi. The man that's pushed him hardest over recent weeks, Marco Bezzecchi, and the home hero making his debut on home soil, Ai Ogura. All 3 of them are, as ever, alongside Matt Burt.